Okay.
Time is 12:52. We are back out of closed session into open session. No decisions were made in closed session. Before we move on, Dr. Blackburn has to leave around 4:30 or so. Anybody else have to leave early? Not want to leave. Not want to leave.
Some of us would like to leave.
Like to leave, okay.
Yeah, like to, yeah.
All right. Trustees, we're now on to district goals and key performance indicators. 5A, we'll talked about Goal 2 last month. We'll continue that conversation. Goal 2, Dallas ISD schools will be the primary choice for families in the district. Talking today about collegiate academies. Dr. Hinojosa.
Yes, Mr. President, members of the board, I'm going to ask Israel Cordero and whoever's assisting him to come forward. There's a particular initiative that we talked about briefly last month, but I think we need to do a deeper dive because of the momentum and attention that it's getting. Board members have been briefed individually, but I think now with the opportunities that are arising and the excitement that's occurring, I think the board needs to have the opportunity to hear this presentation. Mr. Cordero will walk us through it, and then I have a couple of comments at the end of even recent developments that happened today, and then we'll answer your questions at that point. I also want to say this is really a joint effort between, we're taking the lead, but the Dallas Community College District and their board have been outstanding partners, and their chancellor, Dr. May. So we're going to be briefing them as well in next month. But with that being said, I'll turn it over to Mr. Cordero and his team, and they'll walk us through the presentation. And remember, Israel, I will reserve the right to say something at the end, and then we'll answer the questions that the board may have.
Yes, sir. Well, good afternoon, Dr. Hinojosa and Board of Trustees. As Dr. Hinojosa just stated, we're here to talk about 7 very specific collegiate academies, but 8 schools total. The first thing that I'd like to start with is the why. Why are we working with 8 specific high schools? If you look at this slide here, it was pulled from an article which I made copies of, and at the board's pleasure, I'd give a copy to each of you when we finish today. But what this slide tells us is dependent age 24-year-old students that are attaining bachelor's degrees by the age of 24, broken up by family income quartiles. And so if you just look at the very bottom, that very bottom line shows that in 1970, 6% of our poorest families were attaining a bachelor's degree by the age of 24. Unfortunately, 36 years later, that attainment has only increased by 3%, for a total of 9%. If you look at 1970, all of those quartiles, for the exception of the top income bracket, were very similarly close. If you look at the 6%, the next income quartile was just 5% higher, and then from the 11% to the 15%, it was just 4 points higher, percentage points. But if you look at 2015, the gap is significantly different from the top 4 income quartiles of family income attaining a bachelor's degree versus the lowest family income quartile. So for me, when I look at our families, our poorest families at some of our neighborhood schools, generations have come and gone, and we have, as a system in education, have not made a significant impact in the number of 24-year-olds attaining a bachelor's degree. So we look at 2 board goals that everyone is very familiar with, Board Goal 2 and Board Goal 4. They really speak to the what we're doing with the 8 collegiate academies. We have 7 high schools listed there, and then 1 with an asterisk, and that's Seagoville High School, because they did submit an early college high school application in December. After we identified the 8 high schools where there was a grassroots effort, and when I say a grassroots effort, there are schools like Pinkston that for over the last 2 years, if not longer, have been wanting to have a collegiate academy or an early college high school, and just were not able to get it off the ground for one reason or another. We can do a crosswalk on many of these schools that there's been a grassroots effort for anywhere between the last 6 months to the last 3 years. In a nutshell, between that and a combination of leadership, we identified those 8 schools. Once we identified those 8 schools, I began a crosswalk across 6 of the 7 college campuses with the DCCD, and I met face-to-face with each of the college presidents at least one time, if not in some cases 2 or 3 times, to see if there was interest in working with Dallas ISD and those specific high schools. The good news is every one of the college presidents was a resounding yes. We want to partner with these respective high schools. And I just want to give a quick thank you to the Chancellor of the DCCD, Joe May, because he really opened the door for the Dallas ISD and for these campuses to begin planning for these collegiate academies. In December, each of these 7 high schools will submit an early college high school designation application to TEA. So this is just a picture that kind of gives us a location of where each of these high schools are located with their college partners. I think the main thing to highlight here is the location. Based on that first slide that I shared with you, we have a need in our district and in the city to support all of our comprehensive high schools, not just in one location of town or another. So as you can see, Thomas Jefferson on the top left, they're partnering with Brookhaven College. And I would like to pause for a minute and welcome Dr. Tom Chesney, who is here as the president from Brookhaven College. And I want to thank him for being here. He actually plays 2 roles here. One, as the president of Brookhaven and working with Thomas Jefferson High School. But the other is in the DCCD, he has taken the lead with Joe May to support all 8 of these collegiate academies. The DCCD has an integrated network approach where they want to systematize and not reinvent the wheel. And so we're just grateful for the leadership that we have there. The next slide speaks a little to the vision that we have. We have 7 collegiate academies, and the reason we're calling them collegiate academies is you cannot call yourself an early college high school until TEA gives you the designation. So the Commissioner of Education would ultimately sign a letter stating that these schools do have the prerequisites to become early college high schools. In December, they will all submit an application to the Texas Education Agency, which is about 6 or 7 months out. I won't go through each one of these strands that show the support that is taking place to ensure that this initiative and the vision for this initiative is successful. But what I would like to highlight is in green there you see DCCD. Dr. Tom Chesney is taking the lead with the DCCD with an entire steering committee that meets with myself and a Dallas ISD assembled steering committee to ensure that we're taking a systems approach to support all of the collegiate academies, and so that, as some have been calling it, no collegiate academy left behind. The other is
Our own NCLB.
our own NCALB. The other is, you see that there's industry partners in City of Dallas. I think that just a short thing to highlight there is each of these schools, if they are identified with an industry partner, have an opportunity to become P-TECH early college high schools, which in a nutshell means that they have a STEM focused. The seniors graduate with a STEM endorsement on their high school diploma. They focus on the associate's degree of applied science. And so there's a small task force that, just because they've heard of P-TECH and this initiative, has stated, what do we need to do to support the community? And so I want to recognize a few folks that have heard a little bit about what we're doing and have said, how can we help the district and how can we help these 7 collegiate academies? And so I would like to highlight a few of these community members. One is Eric Reeves, if you could wave your hand. The other is Renee Martinez, Hector Flores, Levi Davis, who could not be here today, and a gentleman by the name of Tom Dunning. If we could just give them a round and tell them thank you. What they basically stated is, how can they help any of these schools that are interested in becoming Pathway to Technology high schools that need an industry partner?
supposed to wait on questions.
Yes,
Yes,
let's
if you don't mind.
finish and then we'll.
I won't go through each of these next two slides in detail, but what I would like to highlight is you have the enrollment for each of the high schools, and then you have the pathways that have been in discussion with that college partner already. While there might be one or two tweaks, for the most part, these are the pathways that the high school leadership team and the college president and the constituents from the college have stated. We think we could do this. There's not necessarily a limit, 2 or 5. It just depends on the conversations that take place. But a few that I would like to highlight is Roosevelt. They already have a NAF Academy of Health Sciences. What the team there at Roosevelt has stated is that this is going to provide an opportunity to help that academy expand into something greater. Another is Madison also has an Academy of IT. It currently exists. The principal there has stated that this is going to help that IT academy go to the next level. Thomas Jefferson and Brookhaven are pioneering the health information technology. While this pathway may exist around the state of Texas somewhere, it's going to be a new pathway for the DCCD and for the Dallas ISD. And they have a partnership with Dallas Fire Rescue. The job placement for Dallas Fire Rescue is a 100% job placement. And we have a few other high schools here. There's another one that I would like to highlight, that the city of Dallas, in a recent presentation, highlighted that they would want to see how they could continue to work with Carter High School, because the law enforcement umbrella really spoke to some of the folks that were in the room. The law enforcement is the big umbrella that can lead to EMT certifications and fire certifications. There are age requirements, so for this particular pathway, some of the certifications would not be attainable until the 12th grade, but they can be attained by the 12th grade.
And some of these, you want to talk about how they can get multiple certifications?
It just depends on the pathway that the high school and the college partner identified together, but some of these pathways enable our students to earn a career certificate in the 9th grade, in the 10th grade, and so forth, each grade throughout their high school career. If you look at each of these months here, if I were to give you the comprehensive timeline, it would fill up the entire screen, but what I decided to do is highlight some of the very specific pieces that are taking place. In February, we identified the 6 colleges that would be working with each of the 8 high schools, and we walked each of those college campuses and met with the college presidents at least twice. We also conducted a facilities walkthrough of each of the 8 high schools to see what the needs were to ensure that this early college high school, future early college high school, current collegiate academy, has what it needs to be successful. This month, March, we're solidifying the pathways, and as I stated, we're about 95% of the way there. There are some tweaks that we need to make to ensure that that takes place. Each one of the high schools has an action plan on how they're going to ensure that there's 100 students in the seats by April 30th. I've asked them each week for the last 3 weeks how comfortable we feel about ensuring that we have students in seats by April 30th, so that we could send letters home and begin planning for this summer. We feel very confident that 100 students will be identified for each of these collegiate academies April 30th. May, we'll finalize a Summer Bridge TSI program. June, we will also have an open house in May at each of the college campuses to receive the parents and the students. June, we'll make final preparations for the first cohort of students, and that's when the Summer Bridge program takes place. July, we'll have professional development for teachers, and in August, we will launch with our first cohort, total of 800 students across the district in collegiate academies that will submit an early college high school designation.
And before we go on this particular slide, I'd like to just point out, and I actually think I'm quoting I was told it was a former Dallas mayor who made this statement, but I like it, so I use it. We have more than just a vision. We have a vision, because a vision without a plan is a hallucination. So what we have is a vision with a plan. So with this plan, and it is an aggressive timeline. Mr. Cordero's outlined a very aggressive timeline. And how are we going to make sure this happens? We're very fortunate that we have an executive director structure in our district that allows us that touch point with each of our principals. And because they are feeder pattern designed, each executive director is able to work directly with those high schools and the partners. A couple of you I know have sat in on some of these steering committee meetings. I know Trustee Mischke was at some of those. When we get to the questions, perhaps we'll hear some comments with regard to how those go. This is very doable. Year one, it really requires us to make sure we've got a few things in place. Our students, the facelift to the buildings, the training over the summer, and the identification of staff. Those are things that you can see the team has really laid out. The devil's in the details, and they're working on those details every single day. And when we get to some questions and some comments, I'd like Harold Wright to also just give you some of those details. But I just wanted to make sure that you all do know we are well aware that this is an aggressive timeline, and we're going to ensure that we're going to make this plan come to fruition.
One thing that I did miss when we were looking at the enrollment of each of the high schools and the pathways is in a recent conversation with the principal at Samuel High School. I was talking with him about the enrollment at the campus. Samuel High School was the first school in the district, the high school, that met its enrollment projection. Also, the enrollment at Samuel High School has increased by over 150 students. That is merely because of the early college high school that they have there on the campus. This shows the phase-in of students. So this August is what we're calling year one. According to the early college high school framework, you should have between 100 and 125 students per grade level. So each year after year one, we will begin to phase in an additional grade level. So this August, we will have 100 to 125 students. The following year, we'll add another 100 to 125 students, and so forth.
Before you leave this slide, Israel, and I want you to think about two high schools, Roosevelt and Madison. Madison has about 400 students. So when this plan is fully implemented, they will have 400 early college students, plus all of the other neighborhood students who may or are not going to be in the early college. So some of our high schools that are under-enrolled have an opportunity to draw students to their location. And so I think this is going to be a real game changer for the neighborhood schools to be able to build that capacity back in the system. When you have more kids, now you can offer more AP classes because those classes are make. So this is going to have a compounding effect of success. When you get so small, there's very few things that you can offer. And so this high tides raise all boats, and this is what is going to be very evident as this gets implemented, as we saw happened at Samuel. So this is not something that's pie in the sky that happened somewhere else in America. We've had two great early colleges that were standalones, and now we're in the process of success with one completely, and then Spruce is also in the pipeline. So I wanted to add that because some people don't even think about that. They just think about, just 100 freshmen. But then when you have the compounding effect, that's what's going to be the game changer.
One good problem, after speaking with John Vega at Samuel High School 2 weeks ago, as he stated, he filled the number of students needed for his freshman year, 125 students. But we had a good problem that we needed to resolve in working with the students to help them identify another campus. He said that there was an additional 56 students that were asking how could they become a part of that cohort, which would have taken his cohort from 125 to about 175 or 80 students. And so we talked, and I said, well, the framework calls for 100 to 125, so give us the list of students, let's figure out what we can do. But the demand is there. It's just for this one particular high school, it's, what do we do with the students when the demand is high? And the fact that we have 8 schools from around the district participating in collegiate academies is going to help that. This is the cost per school. So this school year, 15-16 is what I would consider the planning year. Because of experience and other factors, we were able to move a big part of this year without using a total of $169,000. And then year one, that's the total cost, which includes staff and stuff, additional staff members, and additional items that are needed to make the program successful. There is one thing that I would like to highlight. If you look at year one and year two, you notice that year one is a significant increase from year two, and it looks a little backward. The reason is there's a one-time upgrading the facilities that needs to take place at each of the high schools to ensure that we have a college-going atmosphere. After that one time is finished, then we'll go into year two, year three, and year four, where we focus on adding additional staff members and funding like textbooks. The very first time a new early college high school purchases textbooks is significantly more than an existing early college high school that already has some textbooks in place.
And this morning you were also confirming another purchase. What was that other one?
This morning, each of the high schools was selecting furniture for each of the classrooms for these 8 collegiate academies. The total budget for each of the 8 schools from planning year to year 4 is as follows. The one thing to highlight here is after year 4, the cost remains the same because you've built it to scale. You have the total number of staff that's there. You have the reoccurring cost in terms of additional supplies and items that are needed. But because you're not building any more grade levels or adding any more staff, that remains the ongoing cost for the district. A few folks have mentioned, well, what kind of meetings are taking place, Mr. Cordero, and where can we get involved and where can we support? So what we've put together here for you is the cadence of meetings that have been taking place. First, as I mentioned, Dallas ISD has a steering committee that is partnered with the DCCD steering committee. We have already had our first meeting, and part of this is how do you take 8 early college high schools to scale, or 8 collegiate academies to scale. And so one of the things that we're going to ensure that we don't do is reinvent the wheel 8 different times for 8 different high schools. And so this joint effort that meets monthly is ensuring that we have systems that are aligned across the board. Secondly, we have a Dallas ISD steering committee that meets monthly. It's made up of about 15 people. Stephanie Elizalde is one. We have Keisha Crowder-Davis is another. Vincent Reyes with teaching and learning. There's about 10 or 15 that meet to prepare for the steering committee meeting with the DCCD. I meet with the executive directors every single Friday for 60 to 90 minutes to ensure that we're all aligned and on the same page. 90 minutes before the principals meeting takes place monthly, I meet with the executive director and their principals to ensure that we're all aligned and moving in the same direction. Concurrently, all of the college presidents meet on a frequent basis with the chancellor of the DCCD. I'm sure they cover many topics, but one of the topics that is surfaced on their agendas on an ongoing basis is the collegiate academy and how they can support the 6 colleges and the 8 high schools. We have also created a college dual credit coordinators meeting once a month. And that is not only to support the 8 collegiate academies and the existing early college high schools, but it's to support every high school in the district that offers dual college credit. And I just want to applaud Keisha Crowder-Davis for helping us take the lead on that. We've already had our first meeting where every single lead counselor in the district that's in a high school that offers dual credit comes to the same room, and each of the 6 colleges are represented by their dual credit coordinator, and we talk about how we can support the entire system with dual credit. We've also engaged with 4-year college partners because we know the next step after the associate's degree of applied science is what colleges can they go to. Well, they can go to whichever college they choose to. They can go to a private university, Ivy League, but if they want to go to a college and ensure that those hours are transferable, we're working with different colleges to ensure, number 1, that the hours are transferable, and number 2, that they begin this relationship with us from ground zero. So that way, 4 years from now, a student can say, you know, I've been working with Texas Tech since I was a freshman. I think that's a school that I might want to go to. And so we're just trying to provide more outlets for the students. A second is we're talking to the college partners about providing scholarships for students that would like to go and attend their university. And thirdly, we're talking with the college partners about helping teachers become dual credit certified.
Before you leave that slide, I want you to add, there was an article recently about a Samuel student who went through this program, got her associate's degree, then went through the Texas Tech 2+1, and got her certified as a bilingual teacher, and is now 19 years old, is now eligible and certified to be hired next year. She was highlighted on the Texas Tech newsletter that I got as an alum. She was highlighted this week, and it was very nice to see something pop up on my personal computer that has been a product of this success. So that a 19-year-old with a bachelor's degree now teaching our kids, who knows our culture, who grew up in this city. And I mean, that's how much better can it get? That's one anecdote, but we can replicate this going forward. Go ahead, Israel.
One thing that Ms. Elizalde is going to pass around is yesterday we held a retreat which each of these high school campus leaders, their designated early college administrator or collegiate academy administrator, and the executive directors. In addition, there was 2 vice chancellors from the DCCC that attended. So we're passing around the retreat agenda so you could see some of the work and conversations that took place. The outputs for an early college high school, which is what we're all preparing for, is certainly a high school diploma. Secondly, up to 60 college credit hours free. Associate's degree in applied science. Every one of these high schools is building at least 2 to 3 career pathways that will lead to career and technology certifications for the students. 4-year university options. College and career ready. And one thing that I didn't have in that first data slide is, you know, at the end of the day, people ask, well, why do we do what we do? Well, one of the things that we think about when we talk about dual credit, we talk about career certificates, we talk about associate's degree or 60 college credit hours, is we want to put our students in a position out of high school to be able to earn entry-level competitive salaries right out of high school. And graduating from high school with a high school diploma in one hand and an associate's degree in the other, and in many cases, oftentimes the student graduates from their college first and then their high school second, because colleges have their graduations early. They're employable and they can go straight into the workforce if that's what they so choose to do. The other thing that Ms. Elizalde has here for you is we have Tim Heiss in the audience. Tim, if you want to raise your hand. I told the EDs I was going to be showcasing good products as we go, and Tim and his team assembled, this is just a sample brochure that shows the different pathways that Thomas Jefferson is co-creating with their college partner Brookhaven. It also shows the kinds of salaries that students can earn right out of high school with their associate's degree and those respective career pathways. And it has a lot of other things. If you know Tim Heiss, he's a very creative person, and he's got a team that's got an imagination, and so they've done a really good job with that. But it's not only Thomas Jefferson that has put a brochure together or a flyer. Each one of the respective 8 high school has done the exact same thing.
And I will also add my piece that I had a meeting with Dr. Joe May. You know, you always wonder when someone calls and they want to have a meeting with you and they don't tell you what it's about. So I didn't know what this was about. So he called me and he met with me this morning at 8:15, and he came by and he says he wants to offer a couple of other things. As we go in this project forward, he wants to appoint someone from his direct reports from his staff to help set up meetings with these industry partners so that we can, and that he and I go together to knock on the door of the CEOs. Now, we'll have a team working from underneath, but he and I go together to knock on the doors of these industry partners about do they want part of the action so that we can become P-Tech. And like Seagoville, Pathways to Technology, and the industry partner. And then another pleasant surprise. He goes, in addition to that, you know, we service Dallas ISD, and this is what we want to do. But also, I have other districts that I serve, and he was offering to offer up to partially fund some of the positions that we need so that he can take it to scale and actually jointly fund a position or two that would be our employee, but they would also be able to provide services for community college. And so we're going to look at the possibilities of how we can make that happen, but he came with a couple of great ideas that I think would be very powerful. So with that being said, we want to open it up to questions, comments, concerns, or issues that the board may have.
Trustee Bean.
I have several questions here, so do we have our timer going? So we'll have a round two.
I got you. Go.
I have been sold on the school within a school early college for quite some time now because Samuel was the first one, and I've seen the difference that it makes in Samuel. And so my question is, I know we have 8 in the pipeline right now, Dr. Hinojosa, but I also know that it takes, and it's going to be rather ambitious to get all 8 of these to start in 2016, and I commend you for doing it. But if we've got other high schools in our district who want to do this, the principals and the executive director say, hey, I would like to do this, how soon could we get them in the pipeline, not to start out this year, but to start out 2017? Because they'd have to have their application in by December if they want to go this P-TECH. And I'm just thinking this might be a good time to, and I know that's ambitious, but I'm like, let's get it going and get it going strong.
A couple of responses. First of all, when Israel came to me with this idea, I said, okay, how much capacity do you have? And we set our limit at a certain number, but the demand was so great, we went a little bit further, but more people have stepped up to help us. But if you notice, the title of this presentation is Cohort 1. Earl Jones was the principal that I sentenced to a 6-month term on my executive team. And when he heard this presentation at Kimball, he started saying, what about us?
Yeah.
So, I mean, where's Sunset? Where's Adamson? Where's North Dallas? Where's Wilmer Hutchins? Those questions are coming. So this is Cohort 1. We think we can handle this. We're very confident we can handle it with the extreme amount of support. Now, we're going to have to redirect some resources, which will be part of our next presentation, but because it is a costly but very worthy program. But Cohort 2, Israel's already started talking to me about it. So that's my answer. Anything to add or clarify on Cohort 2, Israel?
On Cohort 2, I've looked at where that grassroots effort is as well, and I've looked over all of the existing comprehensive high schools in the district. It didn't take long after we started announcing 8 collegiate academies before other principals and EDs started emailing me and calling me. And so I would like to just share that there have been over 5 high school principals and executive directors that have asked could they be a part of Cohort 2. And so I believe as early as August we could start planning for a Cohort 2 and begin to look at matching them up with a college partner and begin to do a lot of the same processes that we're doing now. The great news is we've taken Cohort 1 to scale, and so for additional high schools it would just be a matter of being organized and planning, because all of the products are already created and being created, and the relationship, big thank you again to Dr. Joe May from the DCCCD, the relationship is already there with the colleges, meaning any additional high school would partner with any one of the existing 6 colleges that we have now. And certainly it would be a matter of me having a conversation with each of those college presidents to ensure that they have the capacity to support us and that is something that they want to take on as early as August.
So, just to clarify this, so we could have possibly an additional 5 to 8 more in the pipelines with Cohort 2 turning in their application by December of 2016.
It's possible.
I thought just an 8, but 26.
This year is
No, but see, the timeline,
they-
Israel needs to explain that because
Sure.
there is a timeline. The reason that Singleville's already in that process is because they got their application turned in before December.
Right.
But December of next year,
So-
we'll do these 8 and we could possibly, Israel, pick it up.
Here's what would happen.
Y'all see where I'm going with this now? Okay.
All 13, and I'm going to use that number loosely, so let's just say Cohort 1 and Cohort 2 would all submit their applications for designation in December. The only difference is cohort 1 would already have a group of students. Cohort 2 would use the entire school year, 2016-17, as a planning year.
Okay. And then they could be designated the following year.
And cohort 1 and cohort 2 would all receive their designation at the exact same time.
Okay.
So they would be P-TECH, and we would have our industry partners lined up and ready to go. I'm ambitious on this because I've just seen it work, and I think this is like that great. It's not a silver bullet, but boy, it sure is.
No,
close.
but this is what happening. What keeps me awake at night is the kids in the neighborhood schools, and what the principals of the neighborhood schools have told us now. The kids want to stay in our school. They don't necessarily have to go somewhere else to get a great education. So this is resolving one issue that has kept me awake the whole time. And so I think it's a great opportunity. We have to manage expectations, especially with the P-TECH, because we have to make sure we have quality control and there are kinds of industry partners that can, because Israel, you quickly describe, since we're at this conversation, what's going to be expected of the P-TECH partner and what year 1 and 2, 3, and 4. And I don't think many people have heard that part of it, but because it's a heavy lift. So will you describe that, please?
Sure, and if I could just say a few things first. We're calling all 7 of these high schools collegiate academies. Once they receive designation from TEA, they're called early college high schools, even though the only thing that's different is the name. You just can't use the name without it being designated. You can't call it P-TECH until you have all of the following. First, you have to have an industry partner. So in Seagaville's case, to partnering with AT&T, the industry partner commits to the following. Year 1, they provide mentorship to the 9th graders. Year 2, their skills mapping and compression planning that they do with the high school and the college partner. Year 3 and year 4, they provide internships, including paid internships year 4. The last piece is that partner is committing to interviewing students where they have vacancies at the completion of their high school diploma, their associate's degree, once they finish their 4 years of high school. And so I was in Houston when Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick announced support for the P-TECH model in the state of Texas. I think it was about 3 or 4 Fridays ago. And there was a gentleman from IBM that stated that in New York, IBM had employed, I believe it was 3 seniors that graduated from high school at about $50,000+ a year. And so and it makes sense because for 4 years the industry partner has been working with the students to ensure that we close the gap on the skills that's needed to work with that STEM industry. And so at the end of the high school tenure, the student has an opportunity to be employed by that industry partner.
I was really fortunate enough to be in on the meeting, our initial meeting with AT&T, and AT&T, they're excited because they're trying to get a pipeline of kids or workers into the system. And to me, it's a beautiful partnership because we're trying to get our kids into great paying jobs. They need people that are skilled and trained. And this AT&T was so excited about this partnership. So I'm glad that you and Joe May are going to be the face of this as we meet the industry. So it is good. All right, I've got a couple more questions.
You got 1 minute.
Okay, I'll say granted, but when we're talking to the 4-year colleges, are we going to include all of the colleges within the Metroplex area because I'm thinking like we've got Dallas Baptist College, SMU, TCU, all these are kind of within driving range, and I hope that we reach out to all of these colleges. So is that the intent?
As part of the integrated network approach that we're taking with the DCCD, there's a council that meets on a regular basis with the DCCD. So we partnered with the DCCD to speak with several universities that are here locally. Now, we've already spoken with several of them. We've spoken with UTA, UNT Dallas, we've spoken with UTA in Arlington, we've spoken with Texas A&M Commerce. There are quite a few that we've already spoken with, and many of them have stated, how can I support the entire initiative? So they're not saying, how can I support Seagaville High School or Thomas Jefferson High School? They're saying, how can I support all 8 current high schools in cohort 1? And they're asking us, what do we need? And we've stated, well, do you have scholarships for students who choose to go to your university? can you help teachers become dual credentialed and dual credit? And we want to ensure that students who choose to get a bachelor's degree have an opportunity to transfer at least the core complete, if not all 60 college credit hours to your university. And so those are some of the, I'd say 3 of the deeper discussions that we've had with those universities. There's many of other logistical conversations we've had with them, but those are 3 that I would highlight. Once we get them all in the same room together, what we would like to do is engage in quarterly meetings with those universities.
Do I have any more time, or am I out?
You're out. Trustee
Round
Midgay,
2.
then Trustee Solis, then we'll come over here.
Well, let me just say thank you very much. I've had the privilege of attending a couple of the meetings with the college presidents, and they are extremely enthusiastic about this program. I can't say enough about the way Mr. Cordero has been moving this quickly and doing it in a terrific way. Very impressed. Talking with the principal at Conrad, I saw him last night at one of the budget meetings. He is on cloud 9. The staff is really excited. And I also want to say thank you to Trustee Flores, who is working to line up an industry partner for Conrad. But this is great. This is what we need, and this is the kind of thing that keeps you up at night because you're just thrilled by the opportunities that are going to be presented to kids. So again, thank you. Great job, and really doing this on the at lightning speed is amazing too. To have this in place next year at Conrad is just wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you, and I just want to say thank you to the entire Dallas ISD steering committee that is helping us ensure that this initiative is successful.
I'll echo the thanks. I think that this is working collaboratively with DCCCD is critically important, and I know that in the past we've talked about the intentions of wanting to do it, but to see it come to fruition it's phenomenal. I wish I would have known about this a lot, the details on this. I was just on a panel speaking with the Atlantic, and one of the questions was, what is Dallas ISD doing about the skills gap? And I said, well, we're working very intense, we're partnering, and that, but man, this would have been great to have been able to just try this on.
Very political answer.
Yeah. We are
There'll be
doing that.
another camera soon.
Somebody's got to talk about the ISD. Somebody's got to talk about the ISD. I'm trying to have a conversation.
Conversation.
There you go.
But seriously, I do have a couple of questions. The first one is, it's interesting to see all of the different options at a lot of these different schools, and that each of the schools, I guess via the steering committee or the school themselves, or Trustee Flores, are trying to identify industry partners. But what consideration are we actually giving to the opportunities first in the actual communities that the schools exist? And then second, what are we doing to try to identify needs of Dallas at large? And then push even further, I've had conversations with Carrie about this, even the needs of Dallas ISD. The conversation about the story about the Samuel child is extremely compelling, and it's important because we have tremendous needs when it comes to bilingual education. So this is probably just another opportunity to build on that. But
So a couple of points, Trustee Solis. One is absolutely the geography and where partners exist are the first places we're reaching out to, and actually we're fortunate many of them are reaching out through either DCCCD or directly through Mr. Cordero. Some have, I think, contacted the superintendent's office with regard to being an industry partner. The second thing is when we've been at the meetings with DCCCD, they have extensive data on what industry has what market and what the salaries are. So as we're partnering with them, Kay Eggleston at Richland, which is one I was sitting in at, they have, and there's some phenomenal folks on their staff, and so they've got the data that help us guide so that we're not creating pathways for something that doesn't exist or isn't going to exist, or that there isn't a job market. Okay, it's great, I've got this skill set, but the only jobs are in Seattle. Well, what if I don't want to move to Seattle, right? So we're not using that whole integrated network approach that Joe May has in place allows us not to steer our kids in the wrong direction. So we're not going to reinvent the wheel. We're using their expertise to help as we move forward with those pathways.
The other thing to point out there is, and I should state, I want kids to be able to do whatever they want to do and to live wherever they want to live. But I mean, we're staring at a 38% childhood poverty rate. Our poverty rate continues to grow. It's grown exponentially over the past decade. So if there's a way to try to tackle the poverty rate via employment opportunities in preparation here, I think that's great. I'm glad you're having those conversations. I know I kind of knew the answer to that, but I ask it anyway because when you pointed out the law enforcement piece, I know that those have been conversations that have been going on for some time, and I know Councilmember Medrano and a few others said this is a need in the city of Dallas right now. We need particularly minority police officers and fires. So thank you for doing that. Two other things. You talked about financial literacy. Or supports around maybe you didn't talk about financial literacy, but you talked about supporting students on continuing their college career once they finish the early college program. I think you alluded to some conversations around financing, but if you didn't and I'm mistaken, can you just fill me in on what are we doing to make sure?
Let me start with that.
Yeah.
One of the things that DC Dallas Community College District does is that since a lot of our students will qualify for a bunch of grants, they've agreed to be the top-off agency, and they're even working to try to make sure that the kids can afford their books and tuition. The other thing is that's why the partners are very important. If these students can come out and actually start working and they already have an associate's degree, then they're not going to have huge college loans so they can afford the balance of their 2 years. So this has a compounding effect of, right now we have a lot of 30-something-year-olds that have so many college loans, they'll have to work forever just to pay back their college loan, and this helps precipitate some of that. And Joe May and his team are thinking very carefully about how to help them through the 2 years. And anything else to add? Because I know you've been in a lot deeper conversations than that.
On the 2 years, here's what happens with some of the early college high schools. Say you have 100 seniors and 60 are graduating with an associate's degree, which is great, by the way. What happens to the other 40 is they graduate from high school and they leave with their 42 hours or whatever it is. If they so choose to finish their associate's degree with that college, in a way they kind of navigate the system on their own. What we're building into this model that we have here is for those students that are not going to graduate with their associate's degree right out of high school, before they finish their 12th grade year, we're working to channel resources with the DCCD for any remaining student that still needs 1 or 2 more years to finish their associate's degree. Now, it doesn't mean that they get a full ride for 2 more years out of high school, but it means that we look at all of the resources that are available to help those students stay enrolled in school and not have to feel like they're navigating the next year or 2 on their own for the associate's degree.
Right.
With the 4-year partners, we're very specifically asking, we would like to partner with you. What kind of scholarships can you provide for this specific initiative? If a student graduates from El Centro and wants to go on to your university, how can you help us, and what can we begin to share with the parents?
Yeah, and I think just to add a little bit more clarity to my question, I think it's at least are we ensuring that there is a conversation about knowing how I'm going to pay to finish, because if you can give me a scholarship, but if I'm one of the kids who does not get the scholarship but does want to continue, what I don't want to see happen as a board member is we tell a whole bunch of kids you can get this far, and then there's no guidance that you're getting from anyone within the school system. So what ends up happening is you do what is happening right now to those children. They break the cycle of poverty by graduating high school and potentially getting into school and going to college, but then they enter into a cycle of debt that then finds them back where they started.
So part of the, hopefully the reallocation of some resources, our model includes an early college high school counselor, and it also includes a dual credit coordinator, early college high school coordinator. Those 2 individuals, those unique positions are designed around, the model includes not just filling out the FAFSA form, not just doing, and how do I make decisions about how much does it cost to go here, how much does it cost to go here, and allowing them obviously to make their own choices, but to your point, Trustee Solis, guiding them amongst all the information that's available to help them make the best decision possible. Some of them have gone out to borrow money when they didn't need to go borrow money because they didn't even know what was available. So there are, again, because of our partnership with the DCCCD, the support we're getting, and from other colleges, even the ability to know which scholarships are already available. 'Cause sometimes it's not just financial aid. There's scholarships that go unfilled because they don't have enough students that were even applying for those that have certain categories. So that's why that partnership is so critical, and it's part of the program so that students would have education on how do I navigate financially and otherwise the system to attain the college degree.
The last comment I'll make is I'm glad to see that you're thinking about potentially expanding in the future. This model may not necessarily make sense for every single high school, but one of the high schools that I would just advocate for, there are no high schools in District 8, but one that I would advocate for that I think we have a potential opportunity to provide something that is attractive to a group that right now I don't believe has any opportunity is at North Dallas High School. And we've got a lot of structure set up to make North Dallas High School the high school for the Uptown, Cedars, and even downtown locations. So. Okay, thank you very much. Again, you guys did this great job.
Trustee Flores, and we'll go your way.
Three things real quick. So, from the financial point of view, I kind of did some quick math, and basically, if we increase our ADA 160 per campus, it more than pays for itself. And if you look at some of these schools that are under-enrolled, I mean, I can certainly see how that increase could happen very, very quickly and easily. And so, from a financial model point of view, it's completely sustainable and expandable. Second question has to do with, if you go back to the map, please. And just to food for thought. I've proposed a couple meetings ago the idea of having a certain level of service available throughout the district, where we would have all sorts of different offerings. And this is the high school offering. This is, of course, early college we're talking about, but many other programs kind of throughout the district. For example, Montessori programs or digital learning programs or performing arts programs or things like that. I mean, this discussion is about a very specific subset. But as we think about this and this map and kind of how we're starting to provide the good stuff everywhere, I think that it's important that we keep in mind the feeder patterns, which is why we have executive directors for feeder patterns, of course, so that our elementary schools and our middle schools align their offerings to these offerings. And as we expand to cohort 2, so that they're thinking about the things. So I was looking at the flyer for TJ, the global citizenship, of course, that's, kind of aligns with its global business and Chinese program, that, would be great to be able to expand so that they can do the college level Chinese classes as well. But I think we need to start thinking, now that these are set, and in a sense they're set because you're not going to be moving these programs around, is to really start thinking about the feeder pattern. And I know Tim always thinks about his feeder pattern, but to make sure that we have those elementary schools starting to feed, more and more aligned, prepared students, so that then when they do get and join one of these cohorts, I mean, they're ready to go. They've already taken in 6th and 7th and 8th grade the precursor classes that they need for that health or for IT or whatever school we're talking about. I'm just using TJ as an example, but so that they have the skills that they need, and then that also aligns to the businesses. So now we're talking, they start as little kids and they go to the middle school, they have a vision for where they're going, 2-year college, 4-year college, job, and a great opportunity in our communities. Not so they leave and go somewhere else, it's so that they stay and work in our, live in our communities, send their kids to our schools. And so I think that this is just an amazing opportunity, as we look at goal number 2 in our market share and the offerings that we have, is that we really make sure everybody knows we have the good stuff everywhere, and that we help kids navigate to these opportunities. That Trustee Mitchke, I haven't had a chance to talk to him, but our second partner is now also online for helping us. So
I'd like Harold Wright to
Yeah.
comment, because he's a ED who's really gotten excited about this. Harold?
So this is really exciting, especially in the Roosevelt feeder pattern. So exactly what you're talking about, there's this thread that I expect all of the schools to embrace. And there's STEM, there's STEAM, and now there's STREAM. And so we're going to embrace science, the technology, reading in all content areas, but technical reading for sciences and math, the engineering and also the math. So all of my elementary schools will have a robotics piece. My middle school already has that, and so will the high school. But I expect every single school to have an outdoor science lab. And so it's going to provide a connection. And so if I'm getting some really great stuff in those areas in the elementary school, it's going to continue. But it's that natural buildup in middle school. And then when we focus on the endorsements, HB5, and we start thinking about, okay, now I'm becoming high school ready, where is this going? So with the excitement of the collegiate academy and early college high school and being able to go into a job, an internship before I graduate from high school, that's exciting. And so I remember being at Dr. Blackburn's community meeting back in the fall. The parents were asking, okay, we want a very great education for our kids, but it's got to go somewhere. Where is it taking them? We want them to be prepared for a career, not just college, but a career. I think there are benefits both ways. Now, in your high school experience, you get to go to college, tuition free, also preparing for a job, and so those job skills will be embedded in the high school course. And if it's dual credit, now it's serving both purposes. So we're going to make some real connections with all of our schools so our kids can get the good stuff in their community. And so that's exciting. That's what excites me.
I'm excited too, Mr. Wright. But I had a question for Stephanie. On the college counselor, is that going to be for all the early colleges? They
Yes.
all each get a college counselor? to
Yes,
help them with
that's
that,
correct.
Specifically for that, so that's great. And then, where, like if North Dallas want to participate, would they get the opportunity to go over to Madison or choose, where would they go? Because as I see, we have them in the south, but then there's kind of north.
Well, the way the model would work for cohort 1 and cohort 2 is the 9th and 10th grade year, they would spend the majority of that time at their respective high school campus. Their junior and senior year, they would spend the majority of that time at their college campus.
Yeah, I understand that, but
Let
I'm
me
just
answer
saying
the
for
question.
North Dallas, now if there's some kids.
Let
who
me
want
answer
to
the question
participate.
this way with a specific anecdote. When with Samuel High School, when Israel was the principal there, he drove up, there were 5 busloads of kids that were leaving. Now, 10 years later, Samuel High School has kids from every feeder pattern, including the kid from Hillcrest. That now there was an opening at Samuel, so he found a way to get transferred in there. So similarly, so Madison can, if they don't have their 100 kids from Dade, then they can bring in kids from Rusk, from anywhere else to come to that school. And that's what's going to help revitalize South Dallas and revitalize those communities that are underserved right now.
And Trustee Nuttall, Samuel has 126 students today that are not from their feeder pattern.
Okay. So that North Dallas will have the option to cross
Absolutely.
over to the feeder pattern.
Yes.
Are we marketing this yet? Are we marketing to all the other schools? And how are we marketing this? Because, parents are making decisions today.
Yes.
What they're going to do with their children. So I did get something in the mail, this right here for Samuel. Nancy, I don't know if you got this, but you can have this one.
Okay.
So are we sending these out to all
No basis, they just send me that kind of stuff.
Yeah, are we sending them out?
So 2 answers. One of those includes Harold Wright or Tim Heiss coming up and chiming in. The first is each of the respective high schools, they have a written communication plan that they've been working on aggressively for a few weeks now, where they're reaching out to their feeder middle school, to their communities. They've gone to churches. Secondly, we've been working with our communications department to ensure that we put this on the hub, that we do a mail out, that we, after today, begin pushing this out to the public using all of the different outlets that our communication department currently has. So I anticipate that after today, there'll be a much stronger push internally out to the public. But Harold, would you or Tim like to chime in on what you've been doing so far?
So one of the things, just tonight, my team from Roosevelt High School will be attending the PTA at Holmes Middle School, and there's so much excitement around. This will be their second opportunity to meet with those parents. And so we have a feeder pattern brochure, aside from the one that Roosevelt High School has developed. And so we're doing it at all levels. And so we're also reaching down into our elementary schools to make sure that we pull them up through the middle school. And so we're targeting parents. We're going to make sure that at a minimum 75% of our seats are filled with neighborhood kids. And so 25% of the seats will take in kids from the outside if there are seats available. There are 250 kids at Holmes Middle School. Typically, maybe 80 to 100 go to other school feeder patterns. And so there's excitement at Holmes. They're talking about, okay, we want to stay now. And so 125 applications have already been submitted. And I'm targeting, my goal for the leadership team at Roosevelt is to make sure we get at least 300 applications. Maybe we can serve more than 100. Maybe we can put 125 students into our collegiate academy this fall.
We'd like to hear from Mr. Heiss.
Sure. To Trustee Flores' point, our feeder pattern has come together to really learn a lot about what TJ is going to be offering, because at this point, word of mouth is going to be one of our best marketing strategies. And so to that end, we've spent time in front of students for the last week, 8th graders at our feeder campuses, talking to them about the opportunities and seeing what their interests are. In addition, we've been talking to their parents at those transition meetings where students are selecting their endorsements for high school. We've also been working through counselors. But I think one of the most important groups that we've worked with are the teachers in all of our feeder pattern schools, because they're the ones that spend 175 days with kids and know them the best and know who the early college student should be and can be and is and have those dreams. And they've been tapping kids on the shoulder and saying, this is for you. This is for you. One of the greatest benefits at having a school within a school model is that our students are going to continue to be Thomas Jefferson High School students that can take Chinese, that can play football, that can be in the band and the award-winning theater program. So students who might look at going somewhere else for high school say, no, I want this high school experience and I want to get my transferable credit hours. So we've been spending a lot of time with our stakeholders, in addition to the great support we've been getting from our Dallas ISD communications team and even our community members. There's a North Dallas listserv that goes out that some of our community members send, and the application got pushed out to hundreds of people yesterday. So we're spreading the word as well.
Dr. Blackman. Well, I just want to thank you also, but just also want to make sure that we have a diverse offering of programs. I see a lot of IT and some medical. Just want to make sure we have a diverse group of careers that we can look at, hoping also that those careers are vetted by potential employers. So I like the idea that you're meeting with AT&T and some other people. And I also like the idea that you're partnering with the universities, UTA, SMU, and people of that nature. And you talked about possibly getting some scholarships once they finish the associate and go to one of the other universities. Are those scholarships funded by the university, or is it also coupled with potential employers like AT&T and Time Warner and whoever else? Are they putting some skin in the game?
At this time, most of the conversations have been centered with the four-year universities. One thing that the industry partners bring to the table from the onset is when the industry partner comes to the table with the high school and the college partner at the same time, they engage in compression planning meetings
Okay.
to ensure that the curriculum also matches what the potential future employer is needing today in the job market. But most of the scholarship conversations have been specifically with the four-year partners.
So are the industry people putting jobs on the table?
To be an industry partner, that's,
No, for one of our students to eventually become an employee.
That's part of the requirement.
that would be a requirement.
Okay, good.
Let me also answer the question this way, Dr. Blackburn. There's a new initiative, and I'm going to get it wrong, it's 60 by 30 or something. Yeah, where 60%, by 2030, 60%, the colleges are under a lot of pressure to graduate students because their graduation rates aren't very high. And so part of it is Dr. May looked at his kids that have gone through early college, and those are the ones that are completing their associates, and those are the ones that are going to the 4-year. And now I was in a meeting with the president of UTA last week, and now he's looking at the same thing. Look, who are the kids that are being successful? Because now they're under a lot of pressure to graduate kids, and so he did indicate they would be offering some scholarships to make sure that these kids who have this track record of success go to completion, because the pressure is on them too now to get them out and graduating.
Good deal. Appreciate the work.
Trustee Foreman, you ready?
Oh, yes. This one I am excited about.
All right.
Hey guys, you are behind the 8 ball because Carter has already begun to talk to the middle schools, and we actually had a meeting last week and got applications from some parents and students that were at the meeting, and we are moving forward with a program that we think is going to be exciting for Carter High School. So I do want to thank the team, but I also want to say what is extremely important to me, and you guys have heard me say this, but I have to say it publicly, is that there are offerings in areas that we haven't had them before. And that is important to me. And Israel has put up with more of me than Stephanie. But I have pushed and pushed and pushed and pushed and then pushed some more. And Dr. Blackburn, one of the things that I pushed for was exactly what you talked about. I didn't just want the IT. And so Israel and I went back and forth in that my desire was to make sure that we had an offering that would attract people outside of Carter. And I'm still pushing for enrollment outside of the district, particularly for the Carter feeder pattern. But there will be one component that will be police, fire, and EMT, which I think is going to be so exciting for the community. The community is just excited. And by the way, as we began to roll out the program, we made sure that it was vertically aligned with our middle schools. And so next year, my job is to make sure that we vertically align our elementary schools, but our programs are vertically aligned with Hulsey and Atwell Middle School. So this is probably one of the most exciting times that I've had since I've been on this board, because I think that it is going to do so much for the children in the Carter feeder pattern. And it's going to help me with my effort to recruit those charter school kids back to DISD.
Amen.
That's what I'm going to do. Thank you.
Are y'all marketing to the suburbs like the suburbs are marketing our kids?
This is Nancy kind of said it, it's not a silver bullet, but it is a game changer. It's a game changer for our kids, particularly low-income kids. My daughter's 9, and I'm already worried about how I'm going to pay for college, so I can't. But it's a game changer for our city too, just to have Dallas ISD graduating from high school with 60 hours of credit or an associate's degree. This is pat yourselves on the back. 2 months ago, we passed a goal that said we want to be the primary choice for families in the district. This is a huge step towards that, and obviously y'all been working on it for quite a while, so good job. One question though about maybe speeding up cohort 2 is a solution for cohort 2 to go into these schools like Sunset that has 0 kids pursuing dual credit, just going into those high schools and at least getting kids focused on dual credit. So is it an FTE issue? Is it a
It's
Is
not
it
an
a partnership issue? Is it just a marketing issue?
It's not an FTE issue. And there's nothing that precludes us from expanding dual credit in every single one of our high schools, which we are doing now. That is part of you've heard me talk about our master schedule roundtables, where middle schools and high schools, that was also my first priority, as Trustee Foreman put it. We needed to align, and our principals that may be watching will remember why they were doing this middle and high school presentation of their schedules, so that in fact we had everyone in the room saying, what are we doing here that leads to this? In addition to that component, being able to offer those dual credit courses, teaching and learning has worked with us. We have multiple courses in the middle school that are high school credit. Why is that important? You get your high school credit, so that opens up more sections for you in high school to attain dual credit. So in some instances, really what we've seen as a challenge at the high school for dual credit has been my schedule, and trying to be in football and be in cheerleading this allows us to ensure that all our kids have access to that. So Vince Reyes met with Texas Tech. They're offering online courses for our teachers to get dual credit certified, or the ability to be able to do dual credit. So we are exploring multiple avenues, tying those down, and the anticipation is that this time next year we will have more than 0 students in all of our high schools taking dual credit.
Okay. Trustee, or Jeff?
I just have one final comment. The other thing, too, is that last Friday, in that room across the hall, we had the city manager and all of his direct reports, and Israel made the same presentation to them. And they saw a perfect alignment with the Neighborhood Plus that the city council members have come up with. They wanted to now connect with they said, who knows about this in these, because they have the certain neighborhoods that Neighborhood Plus that they're targeting, and they wanted them when they found out that we have an executive director, and you saw how passionate 2 of our executive directors are about this. Now there's a champion for those Neighborhood Plus neighborhoods. So, and they were so excited. In fact, I hate Miss Foreman's out of the room, but she'll probably come charging from the back room. But under law enforcement, the guy that's in charge of that for the city was talking about, well, there's also code enforcement, and we don't have people trained up that know how to do code enforcement. We could hire people right now to come out and be certified in code enforcement when they get through with the program. So he made a beeline for Israel after the meeting to talk about how he can set up a meeting. City of Dallas may be one of our P-TECH partners. And so I think there's a lot of synergies there going on with the city as well. And so I wanted to let you know this is not independent. This is interdependent, based upon City of Dallas, Community College District, our kids, and now our neighborhoods now have choices, and they don't have to go somewhere else to have a viable option.
Do you have more questions?
Yeah, I just several more. On the, I think it's going to be very important because we are going to do this in such a big way. But I don't think we should lose sight of the fact that there's going to have to be great communication, because for instance, if we've got 400 applicants at one high school and only 125 can get in there, the executive directors and the principals aren't going to be able to communicate, hey, we've got extra spots. So somebody higher up is going to have to be the one that keeps the statistics and say, hey, we can move you here. It's almost like your transportation guru, so that we do have openings. Because to me, I think the saddest thing would be if we're sitting back here a year from now and we say over at one high school, well, we didn't get our number there, but then over at another high school, well, we had too many extras. And that is going to take a lot of communication, but we can't leave it up to the executive directors. They just can't do it.
And if I can add to that, we do have several systems in place to ensure that when a school gets to its capacity, and say they get 30 or 40 more students that are interested, we don't just leave those students out there without redirecting them to another collegiate academy. So we have some online tools, and we've actually created an online application where it's a drop down for each of the high schools, but where we're able to track the number of students that are applying for each of the schools. That's one way. The other way is we're keeping track of all of the applications that are being submitted so that, number one, each one of the high schools reaches its 100 to 125. But in the event that one school is at 80 or 90 and they come to us in a week or two and say, are there any other students that show interest? We have another list of students that want to be involved, and we can move that to that high school.
All right, and then my final, you said something about upgrading facilities. And I know that we're getting into a budget crunch, but I know that when we did Samuel, it was so important that we separated a part of the building. And it's actually like a little, they've got it cordoned off, there's 2 floors there, and they upgraded different things. And I'd like you to go into a little bit of detail about what makes just the facilities a little bit different on the early colleges and why it's important to do this.
For an application to be approved by TEA, we have to follow, number one, the framework. There's 6 benchmarks, and we have to follow the model with fidelity, and that is exactly what we're doing. So it's not an academy or a pathway. It's literally another school that we're dropping inside of another school for that real, true school within a school model. And so one of the things that has to occur is the students have to be cohorted together, and it has to look different and it has to feel different. An example is these specific students will have a different uniform. It has to just look and feel different. And so instead of creating a whole new building, we just pick one wing of that respective high school and we put...
And let me interrupt you right here, because the sad part of this is that all these buildings had space. And now we're going to use that space, but go ahead.
So we put fresh paint in the rooms and outside of the rooms. It's a STEM focus for any school that ultimately would like to be P-Tech. So we need to ensure that the classrooms have digital classrooms to meet the specs of a future P-Tech. Additionally, we're providing the kind of furniture that enables cooperative grouping, which is part of the early college high school model. So we can bring the kids together, just like we've done at some of the other schools in the district as part of our innovative and transformation process. But you could group them together and then you could separate them out as well. The schools need to have a welcome center as well in that particular wing, so that when parents go and visit with the counselor, the administrator of the early college wing, they could go through a double door, glass door, if you will, that's labeled Early College High School in partnership with El Centro or Brookhaven. And there's a conference room, there's a community room, for a potential industry partner or other folks that are a part of this initiative. And so the students are cohorted, they take their classes together. So in English, it's English classes only with Collegiate Academy students. Now what we do enable them to do is they can take their electives and obviously go to the cafeteria and do other things that kind of integrate them with the rest of the student body. But when we submit that application to TEA wants to know that this is a look and a feel different approach to the rest of the campus.
And Mr. Cordero's not going to tell you, but he individually walked with every executive director and the principal and Wanda's team, every single one of these, so that in fact we're clearly, here's where the doors are going, here's where this is happening, this is what we need, so that the quality control of ensuring that every single school gets that is exactly what took place.
And then this is an announcement, I just got word that Sigerville P-Tech now has 3 college partners, UNT, UTD, and UTA. So we brought on another one today. Just bragging a little. Not for long. I love that kind of competition.
I'm bragging right.
All right.
Now here we're talking about school within a school. When we're talking about the school rating, does it include all of the students?
Yes.
Yes, sir. It will all be one org number, one PEMS number.
Good deal. Thanks.
All right. Good job. Thank you. Let's move on to goal number 3.
Thank you. Stephanie, if you'll